Trojan Horse International News Update, January 2023. In August 2002, William Pollock Sr. was released from New Bilibid Prison in the Philippines. New Bilibid Prison is the national penitentiary consisting of 3 compounds, the maximum, medium and minimum compounds, including several penal farms. In the maximum compound, where William was incarcerated, was death row, where 1,200 inmates scheduled to be executed by lethal injection. William Pollock had been sentenced to life imprisonment for a crime of homicide, but by the grace and mercy of God, whilst he was a prisoner, he was called by the Lord Jesus Christ to believe in him and turn from his criminal past to follow Christ. As he tells himself in his testimony, called from darkness into his marvellous light. Having come to an end of himself in despair, he cried to God for help and turned to and trusted in the Lord Jesus Christ and began studying the Bible, and with the help of other inmates who too had become Christians, became a teacher and preacher of the gospel within the prison. On his release, he was supported by a Christian mission from the UK and encouraged to return to his own city to preach and teach the gospel. He started in the jails of Baguio and Benguet provincial jails. His work took him to meet with various Christians in the city, and he soon realised the need to teach the whole counsel of God, as Arminianism was being taught by many, and so too he set up a theological institute, teaching the doctrines of grace in opposition to the Arminianism taught by those needing to learn for themselves the grace of God in salvation, providence and grace, which is monergism, which means salvation is by the sovereign grace of God alone. Meanwhile, back in the UK, the director of the mission that sent William as a missionary felt compelled to write an account of those errors in doctrines, beliefs and practice he too had found in the UK and on his mission work abroad. Difficulties associated with articles of religion presents those tenets of beliefs held by early Baptists from the 17th century, and a right understanding of them will enable Christians to teach the gospel and correct the errors of those who are ignorant, and teach doctrines that oppose the doctrines of the sovereign grace of God. This book, Difficulties Associated with Articles of Religion, calls attention to the various confessions of faith written during the 17th century that present the Reformed faith in opposition to Arminianism, and written to conform to the Synod of Dort in 1618-19, which opposes the 5 points of Arminian doctrine. It is the view of the author that any preacher or teacher of the gospel must be familiar and be able to expound the doctrines taught in such confessions. It is also suggested that due to difficulties mentioned with such articles of religion and creeds, that there is the need to alert Christians of the current day religious errors, which are often repeats of old heresies of Arian, Socinian, Sabellian, Pelagian and the modern-day Arminian, and prevalent in many Baptists in the UK and abroad. In May 2022, the mission director of Trojan Horse International returned from a ministerial visit to William Pollock and the ministers of Christ-centered churches that had been established in Baguio City and the northern Philippines between August 2002 and this present day. He also visited the 12th Annual Assembly and Fellowship of Ex-Offenders of those who too had turned from crime to follow Christ whilst serving time in prison, and had been reached by the jail ministries of Christ-centered churches, a ministry that was needful to assist former inmates to integrate in a Christian church in the free society. William Pollock is the chairman of this association, and he identified the need to clearly teach the doctrines of grace. This work coincided with the director of Trojan Horse International back in the UK to earnestly contend for the gospel of Christ and the faith once delivered to the saints. This book, Difficulties Associated with Articles of Religion, was first published in 2016, some 12 years after the first Trojan horse mission to the Philippines in 2001. It is now republished, designed to draw attention to the doctrines of the gospel that have been ignored, forgotten, or taught against at this time. Confessions of faith, or articles of religion, are important and should not be ignored or cast aside. It is important that any preacher or minister of the gospel must be able to expound and teach the doctrines put forward in the various confessions of faith belonging to Reformed soteriology. And it is an unrighteous thing to advance doctrines that oppose the gospel and that seek to bind the conscience of a Christian to vague and questionable tenets of religion that are not true and that serve to oppose the gospel of Christ. A free PDF download of William Pollock's testimony, Called from Darkness into His Marvellous Light, and a free PDF download of Difficulties Associated with Articles of Religion is available via the link at the bottom of this video, or a hard copy may be obtained from the link provided below, or email request to nbpttc@yahoo.co.uk.